Men should not see female therapists. Yes, there are exceptions. Some female therapists are incredible, but on the whole, as a man, don't go and see a therapist who's a woman. Ideally, you want to see a man who is older than you, someone who is more experienced than you, someone who is more intelligent than you. You want it to feel natural that you can open up to this person and share your vulnerabilities and take on their advice. That is so much easier if the person that you're speaking to fits naturally as someone who is more authoritative in the social hierarchy. For all of your ancestors living in ancient tribes, they had this reverence and respect for the wise old men, the elders. And just like it was for your ancestors, when you put yourself in front of a wise old man and you ask for advice, it feels natural. Your biology accepts this as appropriate. Sometimes I wonder what the impact would be for my YouTube channel if I had a few more wrinkles and a few more gray hairs. People might think that I was wiser because of my age. But good things come to those who wait. I'm definitely getting older. But the reason that I want to talk about this is because of a problem that I continue to see. Now, I am a huge advocate for psychotherapy. We all have psychological issues, guaranteed, and it's important for your self-growth to be working through that. And one of the most powerful tools for transformation is in relationship, working through this stuff with another person. And a therapist is actually trained to help you do that. But unfortunately, I keep hearing really negative stories about therapy. Guys in my private consultations will tell me about these horrible experiences they had with therapists. And it makes me really sad because I wouldn't blame these people if they just completely dismissed therapy altogether based on what happened to them. I've heard stories of men going to couples therapy hoping that they could get to the bottom of whatever their issue was, but once they're actually in the office, their female partner starts completely lying and making up stories, and the therapist completely believes them. And so instead of actually making any progress, the whole thing becomes like two people ganging up on him, just completely gaslighting him and making him feel like he is the entire problem. I've spoken to guys who tell me that they've had social anxiety issues and they have difficulty speaking to people, they have difficulty approaching women. And when they went to a therapist's office to try and get help with that, they were told that they had Asperger's syndrome. I've heard stories about guys who are struggling with addiction to pornography, and then when they confess these feelings to their therapist, the therapist shames their sexuality and calls them a deviant. A therapist's office is meant to be a place that is safe, where you can experience compassion for the struggles that you're going through. And yet when these men have opened up about some of the stuff that they're struggling with, they've had their problems dismissed as symptoms of toxic masculinity. That is not helpful, and it infuriates me because as someone who is an open and passionate advocate for therapy, that makes me feel complicit in what happened in these awful experiences, and that just feels awful. But here's a controversial statement. You want to know what all of these horrible experiences have in common? They all take place with female therapists. Now, I am not saying that there aren't bad male therapists, and I'm definitely not saying that there aren't good female therapists. But exceptions aside, I think it's safe to say that there is a strong enough correlation between these negative therapeutic experiences and a man seeing a female therapist to say that, as a general rule, if you're seeking therapy as a man, don't go and see a woman. The politically incorrect truth of it is this. Women are not hardwired to think about a man's pain. It does not come natural to them. When they try and understand and empathize with what a man is going through, even with the best intentions, they're not very good at it. This isn't new. This isn't some social phenomenon. This is biological. If you go back to the caveman days, the days of our ancestors, and think about all of the evolutionary pressures that drove our development, and you see that women were very caring and compassionate towards children. That was their role. But it's taking care of the children that occupies their time and attention. And so when they look at a man, they don't think, as a woman, it's my job to take care of you. In fact, they're thinking the exact opposite. As a man, it's your job to take care of me. I know the stereotype that women are the caring and compassionate gender and that men are selfish or clueless, whatever. I have not found that to be the case, and I bet you probably haven't either. Think to your own life, think to your relationships. Ask yourself, as a man, how much time does your female partner spend soothing your emotions and taking care of you? And then how much time do you, as a man, spend soothing the emotions of your female partner and taking care of her? I'm not even saying I have a problem with this. It's biological. That's just how things are. But from what I've seen in reality, those women who are able to show genuine compassion and empathy for men are exceptionally rare. For the most part, women don't know what it's like to be a man. They don't want to listen to men's pain. They don't feel like it is their role to fix men. In the context of therapy, that's a problem, because in order to really open up to somebody and trust them with your insecurities and your vulnerabilities, you need to feel as though that person cares about you, and in addition to that, understands what you're going through and where you're coming from. You know that awful feeling you get when you are explaining some issue that you're having or some problem that you're going through, and even before you've finished explaining everything, some person just jumps in with advice? When somebody does that, when somebody just starts telling you what to do before you've even finished explaining yourself, it makes you want to just shut down and stop talking. Why would you open up to this person and trust their advice when they didn't even take the adequate amount of time necessary to completely understand where you're coming from? And here's the uncomfortable question. Can a woman ever really understand where you're coming from as a man when you're talking about a problem that relates specifically to your masculinity? Can you ever trust her advice when she has never experienced what you're experiencing, or even anything close to it? Now, I want to give a quick shout out to all the mothers out there who make that special concerted effort to understand what their boys are going through and to listen to men's struggles, and they really care. But you see, this isn't really an issue about effort. I'm not shaming women saying you need to try harder to understand where men are coming from and unique male problems. I mean, that would be nice, but it's also besides the point, because I think for some issues, the gap in understanding and experience is just too big. Women will never really know what it's like to be a man, and for a therapist, that's a severe limitation that they have, and that's even considering they're making the best efforts, they're making genuine intentions. I have heard horror stories of female therapists who actually turn their private, personal consultations with their male clients into political discussions. If you have shown the courage necessary to open up to your female therapist about your loneliness and your social anxiety and how you're worried that you're becoming addicted to pornography, at that moment of intense vulnerability, you don't want to look up and see this judgmental look on a woman's face and then have her say something like, by watching pornography, you're contributing to this patriarchal rape culture. That is not helpful. What you want is an older male who sits there with compassion and understanding, who gets where you're coming from. As a man, he understands, and the two of you have a shared experience. It makes you trust him. It makes you more willing to follow his advice. It's that wonderful paternal father energy of this older man who has already lived his life and has lived through these experiences and overcome these struggles. And then from his position of success, he can let you know what worked for him and then offer you guidance. The maternal mothering energy is really important too. And you remember, as a child, you would often go to your mother for comfort, but you would go to your father for inspiration. I think this is one of the reasons why male discussion groups can be so helpful, because the absence of women allows men to relax at a deeper level, because there's a shared understanding. We're all guys here, we're all having a similar experience, and so we can learn from each other and we can trust each other's advice. So please do not take this video as me denigrating the profession of therapy or the value of the therapeutic experience. That's not at all what I'm trying to do. I strongly believe in therapy, and if you're going through stuff, please speak out to a professional, get some help. It's wonderfully transformative. I really believe in this process. And I'm not downplaying the skill of female therapists. I know from my personal life and from people close to me who have seen female therapists that they can be wonderful. Some of the most impressive people that I know are female therapists. I'm just trying to make the point that as a man, if you really want to get the most out of a therapeutic experience, I strongly recommend against seeing a female therapist, because she's not going to understand the unique experience of masculinity that you're having. The best person that you can speak to is an older man who you trust and respect. How do you go about dating women when you're traveling overseas? Should you ever date a woman who has minor mental health issues? And what is the best way to handle toxic family members? All of these topics and many more are covered in exclusive videos on my Patreon page, including my latest video, Is it unethical to run game on women? In this video, I talk about what game actually means, the difference between outright lying about your prospects as a man and just exaggerating certain parts of your personality to generate more attraction. I talk about the dangers of running too much game and the appropriate time to stop trying to generate attraction and to just communicate authentically. And lastly, I talk about the factors that make game irrelevant and what you really need to do in order to be successful to women beyond just the tips and tricks and techniques. If you're someone who has personally grappled with the ethical issues about running game on women and to what degree it could be manipulative, I highly recommend you check out this video. For every video that I post here on YouTube, I post an additional bonus video on my Patreon page. That means that at the moment, you're only seeing half of the total content that I create. If you would like access to the other half, then please go and sign up at my Patreon page. It's just a $5 a month subscription and you get instant access to a whole bunch of exclusive content. It's a wonderful way to support the channel and I would love to see you over there.